We
Broadcast.
should be live. Are we live?
I'm seeing we're live.
All right. Well, who do we have in the chat? We got Buff in the chat. Chucky's Garage, Shellman, and Bear Rose. Where's he at? I saw him in here too. Oh, Bear. What's Bear? I'm trying to catch up on the chat. We were chatting in the back there, and
Yeah.
Buff said he's been down with the crud for 5 days. That sucks, Buff. Some kind of super bug, he says.
There's
Well, I hope we
Chucky's
get
Garage.
What's that?
I said there's Chucky's Garage. You just tell me about them. Shellman's in here. Hey, Shell Bob.
There's quality control.
Yeah, we gotta have quality control in here.
What's that? I can turn it up. Do you want it up higher? Stand by. Spencer's Food Reviews. Oh. My volume is all the way up. So how's your week been there, Chad?
It's been a good week. Well, we had of course Thanksgiving. Me and Mrs. Square Body, we just ended up going to that truck stop that I met you and Amber at to have breakfast.
Yep.
Yeah, we just went there for Thanksgiving. We were supposed to meet with her mom and dad, but they were kind of sick, and everybody else had plans, so we just kind of done our own little thing. And I picked up some more Go Fast parts for projects.
Awesome.
And more lights for the shop at Harbor Freight. So,
nice.
It's been good. Then, of course, also big announcement. We made 15,000 subscribers here on Square Body Stuff. So,
congratulations.
Pretty excited about that. Thank you. Very excited about that because, never thought we'd make it this far.
Yeah. Is that like a significant? I mean, I realize it's significant, but is that like a named thing at 15,000, or is that just another 1,000 for you?
It's just another. I mean, I don't think there's any
awesome. That's crazy. I can't even think about being at 15,000 subscribers.
Yeah, and it's beginning of this year, like in late January, early February is when we finally got to 10,000. So it's only been less than a year to get this last 5,000, and it's like I'm hoping that maybe that number does something with the algorithm.
Yeah,
but I don't know.
I can tell you that. So you've gained 5 times as many subscribers as we have in this year. Over 5 times as many subscribers as we have in 1 year.
Yeah, I mean,
I think as you get higher, it helps. I think your videos get out there better.
Yeah,
it does. I mean, more people watch it to start, they get it going better, and then the algorithm picks it up quicker.
Yeah, of course. I mean, with that many subscribers, YouTube's automatically posting it, showing your subscribers that. So
yeah.
But if you look at the analytics, I mean, we get in real deep into it if you want to, but it's only like 15 to 20% of my views are from subscribers.
Oh, okay.
But even if it was just a nice round number, 10% of 15,000 versus 10% of 1,000. I mean,
yeah, that's a huge difference.
10% is good. But yeah, it's been a really good week. We've had some I don't know, good luck, but just a good week.
Good. We got Richard in the chat. He says, "Hello, boys." Jeffrey's in the chat, and Mrs. Squarebody is here.
Hi, Mrs. Square Body.
I miss a square body. So Amber says, yeah, that's a good idea. Before we get started on tonight's topic, if anybody in the chat has ideas for future topics for us to talk about, something you'd like to hear us talk about, let us know.
Yeah. Thanks, Amanda. I think she's talking to me.
I think she is too. I haven't done anything congratulations worthy this week, so ask you.
Yeah, Bub's gonna give Mrs. Square Body a complex. She's like, why does everybody afraid? Say all that. Are they like scared of me? I'm like, no, they just like to give you a hard time.
So you got Lars and Tim Windsor. How's it going, everybody?
So how's your week been? I mean, we were kind of talking about before we went live, but you can go ahead and let everybody else know. And
I've had it wasn't a terrible week, but nothing has gone as planned this week. Everything that I've worked on, I've had to do at least twice, and it's just everything's kind of. It's one of those weeks where nothing goes your way, and it's continuing today. So hopefully tomorrow. I don't really. My weeks are kind of not really. I don't really have a set beginning and end. So I'm ending my week tonight, and tomorrow it's going to get better.
Yeah, hopefully this will be like the start of a good week tonight.
I hope so. Got JB's Little Shop in there. Oh. Well, I suppose we've been live for about almost 7.5 minutes now. Do you want to get into some cool rock crawling stories?
Oh, I mean, are we like doing like fails or just cool stories or just?
Well, I was thinking about it, and when it comes to racing, I only have a couple of like absolute awesome fun memories, and almost everything is fails and frustration. So however you want to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, the rock crawling thing. I mean, it was a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun and a lot of fails. I don't know. I mean, it was one of those things that, I started building that Blazer just as kind of a dual purpose rig, and then it ended up just gradually getting more and more. The more trails we hit, the more technical stuff got. The more I did to the truck to make it more capable, then it was just a completely off-road rig. So, we just had me and the boys and, the family had a lot of fun with it because we could all go out for the day and just had a lot of fun. I mean, it was in the beginning while I was getting the truck to where it's at now, had a lot of really sketchy moments. Buffs asked a question. The biggest difference between rock crawling and mudding is just speed. Yeah, I guess, but rock crawling is more technical. I mean, it takes technique to get through a mud pit, but rock crawling, you're going real slow. You're trying to pick a line, and we were going up, stuff like this, but then it'd have straight up deals you had to haul over, and my truck, everybody's like, "Oh man, it's a cool mud truck." Like, this is not a mud truck. I avoid mud at all costs because, of course, they don't have any floors in it. It's expanded metal.
Yeah.
So you get covered in mud, and I don't like working on stuff underneath it when it's all caked with mud because no matter how good you wash it, you got mud everywhere.
I've washed that red truck hundreds of times. Well, maybe not hundreds, but several times before since the last time it saw any mud, and both times it broke the drive shaft and Sykes and it dropped more mud on the track.
Yeah, I remember seeing that. That was funny, have the dust underneath it.
Yeah. We got Mustang Guy 6501. Says hi everyone. JB
Yeah.
Shop says rock crawling is very difficult, and you better know what your truck is capable of.
Yeah. Well, you'll find out real quick what it's capable of if you get going. Because when I had before I modified the steering on it, that truck, well, the frame or the body was so rusted out, it would like separate from the frame.
Oh wow!
So my steering wheel, when it started flexing, my steering wheel would go down because the cab would go down, but my seat, the floor pan, would stay with the frame. So it kind of do this, and my steering wheel would pin my legs, and I couldn't steer. Or the opposite, I'd be like, steering wheel go up and down, and also the shift linkage with the automatic, you'd be going up, going up or down either way, it didn't matter. And if you got in a bind, it would shift into neutral or reverse, or the opposite gear you're wanting to go in.
Yeah.
And I've had that happen under power trying to make an obstacle, and of course I had big block in there, and yeah, it would switch from forward to reverse really, really quick. And when you're going up a hill like that, it's not fun.
No, I bet that kills your momentum in a hurry.
Yeah, like I think the scariest moment I had was it got so bad that if the suspension was flexed out, I could turn the wheel all the way one way, and the tires would still be pointing completely the other direction. So I had basically no control because of the suspension, the steering and suspension geometry. And there was one time I was following some guys that had some really, really capable rigs, and we were going down a really steep hill, and I got my front tires hung on a log, so they were like cocked this way, and I turned my wheel all the way to the other, to the left, and they didn't move. And I had a guy down at the bottom of the hill spotting me. I said, "Everybody just get out of the way." I said, "See, he's like, cut your wheels this way." I said, "It's cut that's as far as it's going to go." So because the log was at an angle, so there was a chance that it could have like pulled me sideways and then rolled down the hill. So I told him, I said, "Just everybody get out of the way." I was by myself in my rig, so I didn't have any passengers. I said, "Everybody just get out of the way. I've got one shot." I cranked the wheel as hard as I could the opposite direction that it needed, or where I needed to go, and just mashed it. And it jumped over that log, wheels straightened out. Well, I had to come back and got straight and just bonsai'd down the hill. And everybody's hit, hollering and stuff. I'm like, "All right, guys, I need a break." I had to get out of my truck and walk around from it because I was like,
yeah, I bet.
But yeah, we had a lot of fun doing it. I need to get back into it. I miss it, but of course right now I don't have an engine in it because Squeaky's kind of needy.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a lot of fun.
So talking about snowballing the rock crawling thing, racing did a little bit for us as well. My first racing event was when I was still in the Air Force. I came home on leave, and my dad and a buddy of his they had been building race cars. Well, my dad built this guy IMCA modified, and it's just an open wheel asphalt circle track car. Well, he used to race mini stock, so he had his old mini stock there. He's like, "Why don't you come out and run it?" And I'm like, "All right, I'll try it." So back then, I thought, how hard can it be? Just go out there and go left, right? Yeah, I wasn't doing well anyway. And then halfway through the race, a guy turned me, and your first instinct when you get turned is to let off the throttle and try to steer out of it. Well, as soon as you let off the throttle, those cars hook up and go straight to the wall. So fortunately, the guy turned me and then also T-boned me as I was headed towards the wall. So he kept me out of the wall. But so my first night racing a mini stock, I wrecked it and I had to go home and fix it. had I realized then that that was going to be the story of racing for the next 5 or 6 years, however long we did it, I might not have got into it. But it was fun. It was a blast. I had so much fun and instantly hooked. So then I went back to England for, I think I had 6 months or a year left in the Air Force. Well, in the meantime, my dad built another mini stock and came home, and that one was actually a lot like that Mustang we've got. It was a 2300 it was a coupe car with the trunk or whatever. And that car, I mean, the class had gotten out of control. It had I want to say it was a 10.5-to-1 2300 with I think it was Chevy 6-cylinder rods and a crank that was all cut up, and Keith Black hydrostatic pistons, and a shaved and ported head, and a 610 lift roller cam. Yeah, the class had gotten out of control. Well, when that motor got built, somehow the wrong valve springs got put on it. So we didn't realize it because I was a new driver, so I didn't understand. I didn't know what was going on. It was floating the valves halfway down the straightaway, so it felt like it had no power, even though it should have tons of power. So I never really even got to race it much. I mean, I raced, but we weren't really competitive the first year, and we chased the car, and I was learning to drive. The good part about that is when you're not competitive, you don't mess the car up. It never got a scratch the whole first year.
Yeah.
We figured out the problems with the engine in the off season, went back the first night the next season, and we beat every panel on that car the first night. So we were fast and are fairly fast. We still weren't competitive with the top dogs, but it was our second year racing. We were doing pretty good, and the car was never straight again after that. But we retired that car after 2 years because when you're trying to go that far all out on a little 4-cylinder engine, it's just hard to keep them together.
Yeah,
it's a lot.
What kind of RPM? What kind of RPMs them things turning?
Not like you'd think. I want to say between 6,500 and 7,000.
Oh, really?
Not terrible. Not insanely high.
Yeah, I figured they'd be like 8,000 or 9,000. Just screaming. I
turned more RPMs with my 406 Chevy in my last car than that.
Yeah.
But then we got into the V8 cars, and that's when it really got fun. And Richard wanted me to tell this story, so talk about fails. So we, a buddy of ours and my dad spent the last year I was racing the mini stock. We went over there a couple nights a week, and we took a Camaro stub and built an entire car out of it. That's actually the one that's in the thumbnail. It was called a Sportsman, or it's like a limited late model. It's a stock stub, full chassis car. And I was a Dodge guy, so we built a Dodge motor, and we went out there. I think we went out to hot lap it and got lucky because it ended up having a valve cover leak, and that caught the headers on fire. And when I pulled off the track, we realized the motor was knocking. So, it actually wiped out a bearing, and it was our fault. We made a mistake putting the motor together. We did machine work after we cleaned it and didn't completely blow it apart to clean it again, and a piece of trash got run through it. Rookie mistake, but it happens. So we went out to race it the first night. All I'd ever driven was a mini stock, and a 4-cylinder car. You drive that thing. They say you drive it till you see God. Well, you go a little further than that in that car because you cannot lose any momentum. They don't have enough power to make it back up. So you drive it almost all the way to the center, lift, set the car with the brakes a little bit, turn the corner, and get right back in the throttle. I only knew how to drive that car, so I went out there and I tried to drive the V8 car like that. So the first lap, I go out there and I dive into the first corner, car washes up, and I hit the wall.
Oh.
I'm like, great. So we take it back to the pits, change the spindle, change it, because when you hit the wall with one of those cars, we use big Chrysler ball joints, but it bends the ball joint and wallers out the control arm all at the same time, or the spindle all at the same time.
Yeah.
Change the spindle, change the lower control arm, change an upper ball joint, put it all back together, go out there, don't get the hot lap it anymore because we were fixing the car. And I go out there in qualifying, and same thing, first corner. dive in, hit the brakes, car washes out and hits the wall. And I'm like, I don't even want to drive this car anymore. I hate this car. It doesn't turn. So I'm over there and we're putting another lower controller, changing all the spindle and all the whole thing again because it ruined it all the second time. And a buddy of ours that had been racing for a long time comes over and he says, I got to hand it to you. You've got guts, but you can't drive that car in like a mini stock. It won't turn. I'm like, oh, okay. So we ended up blowing the motor up in the main event because the repair didn't last, and I switched to Chevys and never looked back on the Dodges because we didn't have a real high buck race team. We just bought everybody's used stuff, threw it together, and ran it. And after 2 Dodge motors, everybody was out of used Dodge parts, so all we could find was Chevy stuff.
Yeah.
So, but that was my first 2 major fails in the race cars. I mean, there was lots more. And I got to be honest, some of it was our fault, but when you're racing around with 10 or 15 other people that are all trying to get to the front and adrenaline's going and minds are lost, you get run into them. And
rubbin's racing.
Yeah, well, sometimes it was a lot more than rubbing. Another night that Richard wanted to talk about it. He said you got to slow down to go fast. And it's funny because in circle track, the worst lap that you feel like you turned is usually the fastest one you made because you were smooth and it just went the way it was supposed to. Talking about getting run into, we were so years later we got tired of racing in the sportsman class because we were literally getting tore up every night, and we just got tired of putting the cars together. So we upped our cars into a class that we weren't really going to be competitive in, not truthfully competitive, because we didn't have the chassis or the motor to do it. But it was a clean class. You didn't get tore up every night. It was a lot more expensive cars. Like we were the low buck cars in that class, really low buck cars. And we were racing. I don't remember if it was I think it was just a local. It wasn't one of the big nights, but coming out of turn 4, I guess, a guy chopped me, and I felt like it was 15 feet. It was more like 4 feet. I drove over his hood and launched the car. And to this day, Richard still calls it Flight 67, the night that I flew. I drove across the guy's carburetor. So a little bit of not really rock crawling, but crawling, same kind of deal. Not intentionally, and the car didn't survive it. It went off the track in a tow truck. It tore the whole suspension off the left side.
Wow.
But I really had a lot of fun racing, and it was very frustrating.
Yeah. That's just circle track, I think it's just a good way to just spend a lot of money and have fun, which that's racing in general, or just everything to do automotive.
Yes.
Unless you're super, super competitive and good and have a lot of money to start with, then it's just a labor of love is all it is.
Yes.
About the only competitive motorsport I ever really got into is truck pulling. And it was a hometown class with my old crew cab, but it was still one of those things where I only broke twice, but I was always able to drive him home under his own power. But it's still one of those things like, you're by yourself, so you're not have to worry about anybody running into you, and it's slow, but you can feel everything in that truck. You got 300 feet running wide open and pulling a 40,000-pound sled, and you can feel everything going on. So you have time to like kind of sit back and enjoy the experience. There's not a lot going on.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot going on, but it's not, you don't have the speed involved. So it was really fun. And, that truck was first place every pull that whole season, except for the last pull. And the guy got me by like less than 5 feet. But
oh wow,
yeah, it was the owners of the sled. They had the big boys. They had the Pro Street trucks. Well,
yeah,
they put their backup Pro Street engine in an old Ford Highboy, and we're talking at least 460 cubic inches, probably over 5. I think their limit is like 511.
Okay.
So I'm pretty sure it was a 500 cubic inch big block in an old farm truck, and had to run the race fuel. I mean, it was just like, why are you guys in this class? And I went against them several times, and I beat them all the time with my little small block I had in the truck at the time.
Oh wow!
And then they finally got me on the last pull by just a few feet, which it didn't matter to me. I didn't really care because I was legitimate and they weren't. I called them on it. They're like, well, he's just practicing in for another class, and I'm like, well, he needs to go in that class.
Yeah.
You guys won't let me run in another class just to be against more competitive people. And I didn't want to be in any points or anything. I didn't want to take any points away from anybody, another class. I just wanted to, jump up to the next class up, with my little small block.
Yeah. So when you're doing that, do they weight the sled different for the different classes?
Yeah, they're supposed to. I'd watch the videos. We'd always have somebody video it. And of course, this is back with the VHS tapes and everything. So those are long gone now. But I got to watch because the hometown class was always the last ones to go. And we were always right after the big boys, Pro Street trucks.
Okay.
And I got to watching the weight on the sled. I'm like, wait a minute. They're not changing the weight on the sled for the hometown guy. And it's like, that's not fair to every, the other guys, I usually outpulled everybody by quite a bit.
Yeah.
I wasn't getting close to like the Pro Street guys, but with the same weight on the sled. But it's like these other guys, they'd maybe make it 50 feet and then power out. They just bleh. And it's like, lighten up the sled so these guys could put on a show.
You would think they'd want to, because people want to see them pull that sled a ways.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't understand that sled is different, that you can change the weight on it. From the crowds, if you see your buddy, taking his old wood hauler, and really getting, 200 and some feet down the track, like, whoa, yeah, he's cool. That's a bad truck. But no, they were, I guess, I don't know what it was, but they wouldn't mess with the weight on the sled. And they'd some only get like 50 feet or maybe 100 feet or something like that. But that's the only competitive sport I've been in.
I've never I've been to tractor pulls a couple of times, but it's not really that big in Colorado. It's much bigger around here, and I don't actually have a vehicle that I think I could even consider doing it with right now, but it'd be cool to try it sometime.
Yeah,
especially in a class like we're talking about, where you don't have to build a purpose-built, like you just take your pickup that you drive every day out there and run in a class that's designed for that type of vehicle.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, in the different classes, you could step up to the next class from hometown, and there were small block and big block trucks in that class, and they weren't, super fancy. About anybody could afford to build something to just have fun in that class.
Awesome.
Then it goes up from there,
Yeah.
But because the guy, two buddies of mine, they had the Pro Street trucks, and so I got to hang out with them. One of them was a Dodge, like an old swept line, 60-something swept line, and the other one was an old square body Chevy. I actually got to drive it once at the track.
Yeah.
And that was an experience. Because if you're first puller, most of the rules, if you're first puller and you don't do very good, you can deny that pull and repull if you're the first puller in class. So I didn't do very good. This is the first time in the truck. It's an automatic truck. I didn't get up on the converter. I didn't do nothing right because my truck was a 4-speed. So It's just, and I've got, 800 or 900 horsepower with the 500 cubic inch big block, in front of me. Just, wow. So I denied that pull. So I got the re-pull at the very end. So I asked the other buddy of mine had the Dodge. I said, what do I need to do different? He said, when they give you the green flag, it's not like green flag, you got to go. Once they give you the green flag, you could take your time, get yourself gathered up and then go. The green flag is just to let the driver know that everything's ready.
They're ready.
So he said, once they give you the green flag, get the tension on the chain, get that thing up on the converter, and then just like your drag race, just nail it. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That was a ride. Because you just wow. And the noise, just everything like ah. And his truck, the steering wasn't quite right, so it would dart back and forth. So you're trying to fight the steering and try to stay in it, and then it's like whoa. Well, so I was the last puller in that class, and I was first puller in a hometown class. So I had to jump out of his truck, jump in mine, and I didn't think about it beforehand. I should have started mine up, let it warm up before I went and pulled his truck. So I hop in my truck and I'm trying to get some heat in it and take my time to get out on the track. I got out there, and before then, my procedure was I'd get hooked up, they give me a green flag, I get tension on it, and I'd ease into the throttle. I get up about 6,000 RPM, and then start easing out on the clutch. I had a hard brass button clutch. It was a pulling clutch. It was made for that. Sparks would fly out, but it'd get hot and stick.
Okay.
So I just kind of ease in. About 50 foot, I was all the way out on the clutch and in the throttle. Just kind of nice, gradual pull. Well, this night, I get out of his truck, jump in mine. I'm flustered because my truck's not warmed up enough. And I'm trying to get, hold the idle up, the RPMs up to get a little heat built up in it. I get hooked up, and they give me the green flag, and I run up about 6,500 RPM, dump the clutch, and match it. Like, uh-oh. That old long crew cab just hunched over, almost brought the front tire off the ground, somebody said, and just shot like a rocket.
Oh, wow.
And, one of my better pulls, and they get back around to the pits, and my buddies were kind of laughing, like, why'd you do that? You never take off like that. I said, I didn't mean to, but I'm going to from now on. They said, oh, yeah, because that thing hooked and booked. That actually added a lot of extra footage to the end of the track by taking off that fast.
Yeah, get the speed up.
And they said that looked flawless. They thought I meant to do that. I said, no, I was just flustered. But yeah, so that's how I took off every time after that, and it worked.
What gear do you run in for that?
Well, the way it was set up then, I had, of course, small block Chevy, 350, and I had 456 gears, and just a regular size 235, 85, 1-ton tires.
Yeah.
And they're like half balled all seasons. They weren't big knobby tires because you get wheel speed. And by the end of the day or the end of the night, that track is almost like, it's like dirt track. The more they run on it, the stickier it gets. If it's a good track. So, I was using wheel speed and, kind of traction versus having grip like big old lug knobbies. But so anyway, 456 gears, had the 4-speed, but I would run my transfer case on the high side.
Okay.
Everybody else ran the transfer case on the low side and granny low or first gear in their automatics.
Okay.
And I was running on the high side of transfer case in first gear.
Okay.
And because for a while, I was pulling in the low side in second gear, and I needed more wheel speed. So I got to looking at the ratios, and high and first was like in between low and second and third. So everybody's like, you pull on the high side and transfer case? Yeah.
Huh.
It's RPMs. Get your RPMs up, get your wheel speed, and
Well, with
it
the
works.
small block, you're better off. Like you've said 100 times, you don't have that torque down low. So
Yeah.
get up in the RPMs where you can actually make some power.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you got
Because
Iris in the chat, and he says just run a Ford, you'll win every time. He must be talking about a foot race. Get lots of practice.
Yeah. I never had any Fords give me a problem other than the one that put the Pro Street motor in an old farm truck. But the one truck that always actually was my most competition on the hometown class was a freaking V8 Toyota. You know, the Tundra.
Oh yeah.
With the factory, later model, 2000 something, whatever, with the 5.7 V8 in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that thing would move. I was like, holy crap.
I'm trying to think what year it is. A guy I worked for, he had a newer Tundra like that. I think it was like an 18 or a 19. I don't know when that was. That was a pretty good running truck. I'm comparing it to the 16 Dodge that I had. It ran about the same, but it just wasn't comfortable to sit in. You get used to one thing and you change to something different. It's never the same or whatever. But I just felt like the Dodge was way more comfortable to sit in.
Yeah.
And drive.
Yeah. Well, full size, you got more room.
But I want to say he had a Tundra. It was the same size as my 1500 Dodge. Like they were like mirror image trucks, like the same towing capacity. Just about everything was the same on those two trucks.
Huh. I've never really been around the Toyotas to care.
That's the only one I've ever been around.
Yeah. But we mentioned earlier about ideas for future shows, and I had one earlier today that I might do it next week.
Okay.
Unless we have a better suggestion, but I don't know. I had to go to town, and I was driving back home, and it just a thought popped in my head, but now I can't remember exactly what the instance was. But like not worst, biggest mechanical fails, like not breaking stuff, but putting something together and screwing it up because you just had a brain fart or not a very good mechanic or run out of talent or something like that, but actually working on something and doing it wrong.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. Or it was like the biggest mechanical fail I've produced or we've produced, or like ones that we've done more than once, even though we know better.
That could be a good one. I can think of some good examples for that.
Yeah.
And we're just wanting me not to talk about it right now.
Yeah. No, we don't bring it up now, but it was funny because I mentioned it to Mrs. Square Body, and then I could not remember, and still can't remember the initial one that came to my head because I was just thinking about it. Oh wow, that was dumb. That was really dumb. Yeah. And then I got to trying to remember that when I started thinking of other ones. I'm like, wow, I've had some good ones. So I started writing them down. But that's kind of the idea I had for maybe next week.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, so catch up with the chat here. Auto Salvage Outlaws is here. He said Ford if it's an older model. Richard said, Chad, you should never admit about the Toyota.
He never beat me.
Never
he got close.
That's okay then.
He was the only one that gave me any competition, but he was never. Usually, I like to pull last.
Yeah.
I'd always say I just want to be on the bottom of the roster.
Yeah.
That way, everybody else can go out there and do their thing, and I'd go out there and just kind of put on a show and beat everybody, you know. But then this Toyota started showing up. I'm like, oh, well, at least I know how far I need to get. And sometimes I was like, woo, come on, buddy. I'm not sure if we're gonna make it. Come on.
The Chucky's Garage said you can't beat an old Chevy or a Ford, honestly.
It says can.
You got to add the Dodge in there. Any of the old trucks.
He said can, but I'm pretty sure he meant can't.
Oh, you can beat an old Chevy or Ford. I don't know.
I'm pretty sure he means can't beat old Chevy or Ford.
Yeah.
I'm pretty partial to Dodges myself. I do like old Chevys, and everybody bashes on Fords, but I don't really have a good story for like one that I've personally had that was a problem. It's just kind of funny to say it. One of the most reliable cars that I beat on the hardest was a '89 Ford Taurus, and I tried to kill. So the story goes, my dad gave it to me, or I was getting to drive it because my car was broke down, and I figured if I could break it, I could get my car back and get it fixed or whatever. Well, I couldn't break this Taurus. I mean, and hopefully my dad's not watching this. We neutral dropped it. I mean, I did everything I could to try to kill this car, and I never could kill. I ended up wrecking it, but that wasn't on purpose. But
so
yeah.
Well,
so
to talk about
or give Ford guys a hard time, but I don't personally have any real bad stories about them. I'm sure Richard could chime in with some.
Well, I've owned most of, I'd say a lot of my family vehicles, cars, or minivans. I had a lot of Fords. Had a Ford Taurus, had like 3 or 4 Ford Windstar vans. And really, I can't say anything bad about them because they treated me and my family very well.
Yeah.
Depending on the mileage on the vans, a couple of them were like over 300,000 miles. They finally gave up, and but they put in a lot of good trouble-free miles up until that point. But yeah, that's my only experience like owning any Fords is, pastor that Ford Taurus and some minivans, and so I've never had a Ford truck.
So Two Hack says old truck's pretty darn awesome. Unfinished projects this year. Hello in front, unfinished. Chucky's Garage, his first gambler car was a Taurus. And that kind of ties into the one time I actually did break the Taurus, which I had to be 16 or 17. Richard and I were four-wheeling the Taurus, and we bottomed it out and busted the fuel line on the bottom of it. Well, this is before cell phones. I think I had a pager, but we're like, so we knew we could walk and call my dad and have him come out to help us, but we really didn't want to do that because we were somewhere where we really shouldn't have been in a Ford Taurus. So we decided, I found some fuel line in the back of it, so we patched the fuel line. Well, it was carbureted fuel line, not fuel injection fuel line, so it just turned it into a balloon and broke it. So we pushed the car 1.5 miles to the gas station. It was a little bit downhill, but we pushed it to the gas station. I called my dad, and he comes out there and he's looking and he's like, "What happened?" I'm like, "I don't know. We were just driving along and it quit. We must hit something in the road." Yeah, that's the one time I killed that car and I had to call for help. Other than that, it never gave me any problems.
Yeah.
So Mustang guy says, my dad had a 300 inline 6 that threw a rod through the block and drove him home.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, I've heard stories of guys, those old 300 straight sixes, they'll want to kill it and literally drain the oil out of it and drive it, and they would knock and carry on, but they would never lock up. They just keep on driving. Like, well, crap. So they put oil back in it, and it was fine. Like they fixed themselves.
Oil is optional. Oh, Amber says, did either of you ever get hurt racing or rock crawling?
I've had my pride hurt back when I had it. I don't have much anymore.
Yeah, definitely had my pride hurt. I mean, you have to define hurt, because I bled a lot, but mostly not from racing, mostly from trying to get the car running in the pits.
Yeah, I've never had any injuries, personal injuries from my my adventures in motorsports. Of course, most of mine's the low speed stuff that, you know, you have a little more time to think about what's going on. Now, rock crawling, things can happen quickly.
Yeah, and you can still get hurt pretty bad rock crawling.
Yeah. I mean, there's several times we've had the Blazer kind of on its side and actually laying on its side, but the trail, we were still not necessarily on our side, but we were, you know, there's a lot of ratchet stuff on the side of the cab.
Yeah.
I don't know how that windshield kept from getting busted, but we'd be like this until we get this spot, and then it'd finally right itself back up. Yeah. But I never got injured that I remember, anyways.
Just in the pits. I mean, that's the Thrasher Award at No Name Nationals. we I don't remember what happened. We're at the races. This is back when we had the Ford. One of the times the motor didn't live. And I don't remember honestly what the failure was, but we had to change the head. We changed the head on that car at the track between rounds and got it back together to go out there and race it again. Lots of smashed fingers and cuts and bruises doing that kind of stuff, but never. I think after Flight 67, I was pretty sore. But other than that, I never had to get an ambulance, knock on wood. And
yeah.
The most violent, I guess, wreck that I've had at the racetrack was when I was in high school. In my Scamp, I put it in reverse at 95 miles an hour, not on purpose. And it was on two wheels for a little bit. My mom, every time she tells a story, she said, when you rolled your car, and I keep telling her I didn't actually roll the car. It got back down on four wheels. No body panel actually touched the ground, but it was on two wheels for a little bit. And that I actually still have that transmission. Somehow it survived.
Oh wow!
We raced it.
Dodge transmission survived that.
Yeah, it's a 904 with a little one too. I don't know how. I don't know. I still can't tell you how it survived reversed at 90 miles an hour. But it did. Probably because it didn't actually turn. It just locked the tires up. The rear tires just stopped at 95 miles an hour, and
woo!
I almost didn't spin it around, but I probably couldn't keep it from going around now. I wasn't really experienced at keeping stuff straight back then, so I pretty much went one way, went the other way, overcorrected, spun it around, went sideways into the dirt, and ended on two wheels.
Yeah.
Oh, what else do we have in the comments here? Chucky's Garage says his dad did that with the 300. Leighton Welding's here.
Going on, Robert?
Richard says, Travis explained the mountain bike tragedy.
So
I can only tell the story about this one because I don't actually remember any of it. When I was 15, before we could drive cars, we rode bicycles everywhere.
Yeah.
And we had mountain bikes, and we'd go out and not really in the mountains, but behind where I lived in Colorado there, it was called Liberty Point. It was just big cliffs, cliffs for lack of a better term. Well, in some of them, there was dirt bike trails. We were out there riding our mountain bikes on the dirt bike trails. And the story I got is we were looking at a new trail, me and a buddy of mine, and I looked down, we were going down this trail, and and he's like, no, I don't think it's a good idea. And I said, oh, watch this or whatever, and went down the hill. At the bottom of the hill, I went over the handlebars and face first into shale and woke up in the hospital 3 weeks later. I got I got a helicopter ride, and I don't even remember it. It was expensive too. But yeah, that's the worst I've ever been hurt doing anything, was on a bicycle. And the only broken bone I've ever suffered was also on a bicycle, which that's a strange story. It was exactly almost to the minute 2 years before I went to the hospital with the head injury when I broke my ankle on a bicycle.
Oh wow.
Wait, hold on. I'm trying to catch up. Whose comment?
My dad.
No, I don't see it, Amber.
Right above
Oh,
you.
there's. So Amber's dad's in the chat, and he says these stories are awesome. Did Amber take second place in a demolition derby? And yeah, Amber took second place in a demolition derby. She was in a Dodge, so she's got that going for her. Or Chrysler, actually, a New Yorker, but the only demolition derby I've ever done. And the derby part of it, I didn't really enjoy. My transmission broke in a Dodge, so you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, she got second place. She did really good. I mean, didn't tear the car up. Well, so she didn't realize it, but she had a really good strategy because she really didn't want to get in a wreck. So she was bumping people, but she never really. I mean, so Richard, not that time, but the next time we went to demolition derby because he likes doing that. His first hit was an arena shot in a 4-wheel drive Suburban. Yeah, all the way across the arena, and I think it killed it in one shot. I don't think it survived that. But yeah, so Amber did second place. She beat us both in a demolition derby. But the most fun part about that whole thing was the enduro cross. So think circle track race, dirt race with jumps, and a demolition derby going on at the same time. That was a lot of fun.
That would be a lot of fun.
If somebody would organize, I would build a car for that. Absolutely.
Yeah. That would be a lot of fun.
What'd you say?
The most recent comments
Uh,
about the head injury, like 3 people.
Wait, no. Oh, Jeffrey's never heard that story? Oh, wow. Unfinished says head injury. That explains it.
Yeah.
And
Well,
Buff
at
said
least-
the same thing.
At least you've had a legitimate head injury that may explain some stuff. Mine's just poor health decisions, I guess you could put it, when I was younger. And maybe not when I was so much younger. Just don't treat myself very well, so I think I burned a few brain cells.
Richard says he still suffers from that hit.
Yeah.
Jeff says that hit was epic. It was pretty good. It was pretty good. Chucky's Garage says Dodge trans problems. Who would have thought? Well, so that is another one that it was my fault. I didn't want to pay for an actual shifter, so I made a shifter. Well, what I didn't anticipate was the weight of my solid steel rod shifter. Every time I hit somebody, it would go from reverse to drive. Well, that's the hardest thing you can do on a Dodge transmission that hasn't been built, have upgraded parts in it. And so it tore the sprag out of it. I actually have that transmission out here.
Mine just came unplugged.
And then, yeah, actually Amber didn't finish the race because the ignition switch came unplugged and the car shut off and she couldn't get it started again.
Oh.
Buff says, "Let me tell you about shifters, Travis." Hey,
Yeah.
look, you gave me a pile of junk, Buff, and I made the car shift. That's you can't ask for much more than that. Chucky's Garage says, "Yeah, that's tough on any trans."
Yeah.
It's the I learned a lot from that too about we never built derby cars before. I mean, we just we didn't really do a lot. We put the bar on it that you had to have on the driver's door. We made a couple of propane tank gas cans, put 2 batteries in each car, took the fan off and chained the radiator in so it could move around a little bit and hopefully not get punctured. We didn't do anything else besides that. Well, we learned a lot about derby car racing or building then. And Richard did a lot better in the ones he did after that. I really didn't have any interest.
And I never got into it actually myself. The guy I worked for in the shop, he had one. I never did get a chance to see him run it or anything, but he had me build the 305 for it. You know, it's actually his first 305 I built. I was like, why are you doing a 305? He said, because they're indestructible. He said,
"Yeah,
make sure it's got a lot of slop." He said, build it loose.
It's going to get hot in the Derby car, guaranteed.
Yeah. He said build it loose, and almost wore a ball hone out, loosening it up.
Yeah.
But it ran good, and he never had any issues with that. But a lot of guys run the 305s, and
well, then that's what you find. The guys that are really competitive at the Derbies, they're taking a built motor out of one car and putting it in another car and putting it in another car. We just ran the stock junk that came in the cars we got. I think Richard had they were all late 70s or early 70s cars. I think except for Amber's. I think Richard's was a Pontiac. I had a 71 Dodge Monaco, and Amber had a 76 Chrysler New Yorker.
Oh, wow.
But so that was a pretty cool deal because Richard worked at a scrapyard. So they all came into the scrapyard not running, and they got donated to us for the Derby, and we took them back when we got done.
Win-win.
So, yeah, that was a pretty cool deal. I guess we didn't take them back because Richard's went back because his didn't work anymore. But we
went back eventually.
Yeah, we kept both of ours. We were going to run them again, but then just no interest in Derbies.
Yeah.
So we have 4 minutes left. We should probably talk about the after-hour show for a minute here.
Yeah.
If we're still planning on doing that tonight. Do you have to work tonight?
Yeah. So I'll get out here. I mean, I got till about 10 o'clock. So, but that's usually plenty of time. That's 2 hours.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So everybody who's in the chat, if you haven't been here before, after we get done at 8 o'clock, we're going to shut this down just to keep this first hour or this first part of the live an hour long and leave it up on the channel so people can watch it back or whatever. And then after that, at 8 o'clock, we'll start another one, and we'll throw the link out there for anybody who wants to join in and talk to us and hang out and chat. We'll have the link in the description. We don't have another computer tonight. We have them all shut down because of the lightning. So, I don't know if we'll be able to pin the comments on that one or not, but we'll make sure everybody has the link to join if they want to.
Yeah.
You totally put the link in there last time.
Did
on StreamYard, yeah. You could easily do it.
Yeah, but I can't pin it.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm reading the comments.
Yeah.
Trucky's Garage built a Derby car out of a 77 Buick LeSabre with a 3.8 that didn't have enough power to hurt itself. That's a good motor that if you can rev it and not have to worry about it blowing up because it doesn't make enough power to blow up. Buff's going to break a supercharged 3.8 real soon. That doesn't sound like a great idea, Buff. It could be fun, I guess.
I seen a guy on YouTube. I never went back to follow up to see how it turned out, but I think he took 2 of those superchargers off those 3.8 and made a manifold and put on a small block Chevy.
Oh, wow.
But this has been a couple years ago, but I don't remember going back and seeing how it turned out. But a friend of mine had one of those Pontiacs with 3.8 turbocharged or supercharger, and it had a smaller pulley, had some tuning done to it, and it was surprisingly fast.
Yeah.
For you're not expecting that out of a little front wheel drive car, and man, that thing would set you back in the seat.
Yeah, some of the factory supercharged stuff is pretty cool. It's too bad they didn't think to do it to the V8s back in the day.
Yeah. Well, they had the turbocharged stuff with I forget how they explained it. I know Pontiac had that in the early 80s on their Firebirds or Trans Ams, and they were pretty much garbage.
Was it a V8 that was supercharged?
Yeah.
Oh,
they supercharged the 0301 Pontiac.
Oh.
Yeah. They were gutless, even with the turbo.
So Buff is going to drive a car that's been sitting for years, 500 miles, I guess, to get it home with the supercharged 3.8 in it.
It'll do it. It'll be all right.
Yeah. I mean, so it's a little tougher with that when you got fuel injection. You can't just make sure it's getting fuel.
Yeah.
Oh, there's quality control with the alarm bell. I guess it's time to shut
Yep.
this one down and hop over to the other live. It'll be on my channel again this week. We will continue this in just a few minutes. As soon as we get it switched over,
Yep.
if everybody wants to jump over there, we'll let anybody who wants to go live and come hang out and chat with us get on there.
Yep.
See you guys in a bit.
And
thanks for coming, guys.
As long as everything goes good, this will be on my channel next week. So tune in next Tuesday night at 7 on my channel. All right.
Oh, yeah.
Let's get out of here and get up to the play yard.
Okay.
I remember how I did it last time.